Protests after South Africa's president fires his finance minister. Jacob Zuma says it's necessary to address economic inequality. But is it also exposing deep divisions in the country? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zeidan. South Africa's political and economic crisis has taken another twist. President Jacob Zuma has fired Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan just months after appointing him to the job. 9 other ministers have also been sacked in a surprise cabinet reshuffle. Well, Zuma's decision is facing strong criticism from both ruling party members and the opposition. They're worried about South Africa's economy, just at a time when many believed it was starting to stabilise. Zuma argues radical socio-economic transformation is urgently required to help lift South Africans out of poverty. Well, Gordhan strongly denies allegations he was trying to undermine the government.
But there's an allegation circulating around that sickens me. And that allegation is that I had secret meetings, or a secret meeting, with somebody or bodies. And the intention was to undermine this government. Now, people like both of us, and there are many others like us, so we don't claim any special privilege, have from a very young age been activists in the struggle. Why on earth we would want to undermine this country now?
Well, there's growing pressure on President Zuma to step down. He's spent years fighting off allegations of racketeering and corruption relating to a controversial 1999 arms deal. Last year, a constitutional court ordered Zuma to repay some of the $16 million of state money he used to upgrade his private home. And he survived a no-confidence vote last year. But the latest crisis is putting the pressure back on Zuma. Let's bring in our guests into the show. We have Bongani Mbindwane, an ANC supporter, businessman and newspaper columnist in Cape Town. Joining us from Nairobi, Alikhan Sachu, CEO of Rich Management and an emerging markets economist. And also in Cape Town, Lawson Naidoo, Executive Director of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Welcome to you all. If I could start with Bongani. Have divisions reached an unprecedented level within the ANC, within the ANC-led tripartite alliance? Is Jacob Zuma becoming even more of a hot potato than he's ever been?
Well, I'm not sure about unprecedented. The ANC, over the years, since 1912, its founding, has gone through various divisions within over policy and direction or leadership issues. Is Jacob Zuma an issue right now? Yes, because as you will know, his term ends in 2019, and right now the ANC is preparing itself for a contestation of positions to succeed Zuma.
Regularly, how often is it that you have senior members of the government of the ANC, the Deputy President, the ANC Secretary General, publicly disagreeing with the President on an issue like this?
Again, the context is very important, Sami, because we have not seen something like this before, because it has never occurred before. And we are new in government. It's been 23 years. But if you track the history of the ANC backwards, you'll know the divisions that led to the formation of the PAC. You'll know similar things happening during exile, even the talks, rough criticism in funerals and so forth. Is nothing new. You remember the Gang of Eight in the 1970s, which was then dismissed after critically challenging and going after the then President Oliver Tambo. So we have a contestation before us, that's number one. And indeed, there are people who feel that the economy is not moving in the right direction.
Right.
And both sides want to find a solution to that.
All right, I can see Lawson is shaking his head, I think, in disagreement. So I take it you don't see this as simply another bump in the road for the ANC, Lawson?
Absolutely not. And I think we must acknowledge the fact that the ANC is now in government. It is the ruling party in South Africa. We're not talking about an exile liberation movement where there were differences over ideology and policy. This is about those in the ANC that support corruption and those that stand for principled values of this liberation movement, this once proud liberation movement. The ANC has never been as divided as it is right now. And that division is down to the leadership of Jacob Zuma. To have the deputy president of the country saying that he does not understand and does not agree with the firing of the Minister of Finance is unprecedented. To have the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede to simply say that they were informed and not consulted about the cabinet reshuffle is unprecedented. This is Zuma acting as a rogue president. He did not even have the courtesy of calling in those ministers and informing them in person that they were being fired. They heard through the news wires and social media feeds. That is how Zuma conducted this late-night raid on our democracy.
Well, let me jump in again to you as well, Lawson, and say, you know, the argument has been made by Zuma supporters that, of course, constitutionally, legally, he's not obliged to get anyone's permission if he wants to remove a cabinet minister from office, right?
Indeed, that's correct. In terms of the Constitution, he has the constitutional responsibility to put a cabinet together. But in the way that the ANC functions as a cohesive collective force, it is expected within the ANC that he would consult the senior leadership. He had 2 meetings with his top 6 officials in the African National Congress this week, and yet did not see fit to discuss the full extent of his reshuffle. He discussed the issue of the removal of the Minister of Finance and was told, certainly by Cyril Ramaphosa and Gwede Mantashe, that they did not agree with that. But he went ahead regardless, realizing the risk that it poses not just to the African National Congress, but to the unity of the Republic of South Africa, which is something that he has sworn in his oath of office to maintain and promote.
All right, let's bring Ali into the discussion here. As you know, Ali, one of the reasons that the president has given for this reshuffle is basically wealth distribution. What does this really boil down to? Is it a clash of ideology? Is it a clash of personality? How do you read this as an economist?
You know, this is not the first instance when the president has replaced a very competent finance minister with somebody without any competence in finance. So this is the second time. The last time, you'll remember, Sami, Mr. Van Rooyen, whose one claim to fame was to have his house burnt down when he was mayor of some town, lasted about 3 days. And obviously the president has been looking at this situation for a while. This is a smash and grab conducted in the dead of night at midnight when most people are in their bed and sleeping. Make no mistake, this is all about getting the keys to the till. This is nothing to do with the national interest. In fact, I would even venture that Zuma and his cohorts are trading the rand, because each time he does something like this, the rand moves dramatically. I think we're at a Hunter S. Thompson moment, who said famously,
Ali, let me jump in. Of course, we haven't got any evidence of them trading the rand, of course, but I mean, what do you make of the argument?
No, I'm just saying it's.
So yeah, let's stay. But let's focus on the question of, I mean, I'm sure his supporters will make the argument, if we're trying to get the keys to the treasury, it's to redistribute wealth.
Do you really think so? I don't think there is anybody who really believes in that at all. I mean, all the evidence points to an entirely different direction and an entirely different an entirely different mens rea when it comes to trying to gain control of the treasury. So I think everyone is seeing it for what it is. The rand has collapsed 7.5%. It is inevitable. It is predicted. It is predictable that South Africa will be at junk status in very, very short order, because what we have seen is essentially a smash and grab of the treasury. That's political risk right there. And I think, you know, it is inevitable now that we're going to see a negative feedback loop in the markets.
All right, I can see now we've got Bongani shaking his head in disagreement, so go ahead. I take it you have a little more confidence in what's going on with the economic order of things.
Sammy, you know, I'm brought into a laugh because I just don't understand this. It's as though I'm listening to someone reading a movie script from Hollywood. It's just nonsensical. South Africa is a rule-based society. We have a constitution that also governs finances. The constitution spells out how the finances must be conducted. Budget limits are set in law. You can't just go in and take some key of the treasury and start looting. That's absolutely ridiculous and such a careless allegations to make in international media. Surely liberal laws ought to look at what people say without evidence. These are hyperbolic assumptions that are being made about someone. I mean, you are telling me that a very honorable minister, Malusi Gigaba, who is now the Minister of Finance, is going there to steal? Are blacks always just stealing?
Well, let's turn the question around, if we can, Bongani, and say, what sort of policies do we expect now if we have a new finance minister, and if the reason is to sort of help the disadvantaged groups who haven't advanced much since the end of apartheid? What sort of policies do you expect from the Zuma administration now, then?
Well, the same policies of the ANC must not be watered down. That's what Zuma can't change ANC policies and water them down. If you water them down, as has been the situation up till recently, we really have a big problem. We have to implement the policies of the ANC as they are, improve on them, and we hope and believe that with his track record, Minister Gigaba will be able to say, under no circumstances should Indians and white people be the controllers of this economy. Right now, we have white people earning 9 times that of black people. Indians are earning 7 times that of Africans and coloreds. So these things are very unacceptable to us. And we're very, very serious when we say we want land redistribution done. We want money supply, which is influenced strongly by Treasury, to go to black business, to promote black business and promote housing for black people, and not only go to white areas and white people.
Okay.
We have in this situation here that the black majority that are being asked by my colleagues here to stay the cause. Why must we keep agreeing to be hungry?
Okay, that's a good point. Let me take it, if I may, to Lawson and say, is that what this boils down to, Lawson? Do you expect that we will see support for black businesses, support for black housing, redistribution of land to help some of the black working classes and so on and so forth?
Nobody would disagree with any of those policies of the government and of the African National Congress. But Bongani is living in a parallel universe, it would appear, because what we need is more effective implementation of policy. There's nothing new about policy. It is about implementing the policies that the ANC has put in place. Yet this ANC government, has failed over 23 years to reduce the inequalities that he speaks about. The ANC has been in government now. They've had the opportunity to deal with those things. And particularly this administration under Jacob Zuma has proven itself incapable of doing that. We have seen the levels of corruption in our society, not just in government, but across society, having increased over a period of time. Black economic empowerment programs being used to benefit a few at the expense of the many. So this is really about how do we redistribute and create a more equal society? This government has run out of ideas as to how to do that. And what we are seeing is, he talks about Mr. Gigaba as the new minister. As Minister of Home Affairs, he put in place a very onerous visa regime that prevented tourists from coming to South Africa, that prevented skilled workers that we needed from being able to work here, that had an impact on our economy. How much more damage will he now be able to do as the Minister of Finance?
All right, but hold that thought. I know that Bongani wants to get in, but since we are talking about the economics, Let's recap on some basic facts here, because the cabinet reshuffle has already hit South Africa's struggling economy. Markets reacted, as you might recall, instantly. The rand plummeting 5% after President Zuma's overnight decision. Unemployment, of course, is around 27%, and that's the highest since shortly after the end of apartheid. Now, blacks still make up the vast majority of South Africa's poor. More than half of the estimated 5 million unemployed under the age of 35. That's a lot of unemployment, isn't it, Ali? That's a very bleak situation for black people in South Africa to have to endure. Is that going to be turned around now, or is South Africa going to be heading towards a credit down rating, economists are saying, and perhaps even tougher times ahead?
So the first point to make, if I might respond to some of those very hyperbolic comments that came out in reaction to what I said. Firstly, if you want to create a better economy in South Africa and create more jobs for your people, you need to have an economy that's growing and that is not being attacked every year or 12 months by the arbitrary dismissal of very talented finance ministers. I was not being racist when I was comparing Pravin to the incoming minister, because, of course, President Zuma removed Finance Minister Nene not too long ago. So what we've got is a fundamental problem. For all the dreams that the ANC is going to have, they're going to have a junk bond. They're going to have a rand over which they have no control. They're going to have all their parastatals basically downgraded to junk. It is inevitable, and therefore the amount of wriggle room that's going to be there is going to be considerably less than it would have been under Gordhan's program, with which so many people had placed faith globally because they believed what he was saying. So I think it's a credibility problem for South Africa.
But Ali, what do you make of the argument that it's about time? It's about time that somebody in the cabinet puts the interests of wealth redistribution before balancing the books. So that's got to really be prioritised at some point. What do you make of that? Briefly, Ali.
Absolutely, that's got to be done across the continent. We've got a massive problem in wealth distribution, not only in South Africa, but it's not going to be it's not going to happen this way,
right?
Because there will be no money in the till to do it because of the panic that the markets are going under right now.
Okay, I could see Bongani shaking your head, but if you want to redistribute the wealth, you've got to have some wealth left in the till there, don't you?
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. I agree with Ali. But this is the issue here in South Africa. Ali just doesn't know South Africa. And he can't lecture me from Nairobi, certainly. I can tell him, as an activist of the ANC for a long time and a person who interacts in this economy, that he's flatly wrong. And this doomsaying has been carrying on in South Africa since the establishment of the ANC in 1912. We were told that if a black government comes, everything will fall apart. Even as recent as our FIFA World Cup hosting, we were told that our South Africans are just going to mess things up. They're not going to do anything right because of so many underlying issues. We have a racial problem, that a dark skin is problematic, it's thieving, it's corrupt. That is the basis at which we come at. We have a class problem where classism filters in the consciousness of certain commentators. And certainly they're not speaking for the poor. The poor want out of the trap of always worrying about what the West will say if a certain decision is made for the benefit of the poor.
Talking about traps, Bongani, is the president now perhaps in a bit of a trap? Could a no-confidence motion by the opposition in Parliament gain enough supporters amongst some disaffected members of the ANC to actually topple Zuma? What do you make of that suggestion?
If they're dissatisfied, they'll be saying and accusing a very talented young man, Malusi Gigaba, of being a thief. They'll be accusing an African of something he has not done.
But that's not my question, Bongani. Do you think, how much of a threat is this to President Zuma?
Well, if some members, they'll need about a minimum of 70 from the ANC collective members of parliament to vote with the opposition. If they do that, they will be dissolving themselves. They'll be dissolving parliament. Then elections will have to be called. So they have to decide whether they are on the side of white capital or on the side of those who want to return wealth back to the people. Sami, 97% of wealth in this country is in a minority, which is 9% white population. Add to that a good amount of Indians also control a large section of our country's economy. We must not mince words. Africans must own their country's economy. We must desist from allegations that are baseless.
Right, okay.
The ANC operates under strict laws, and Minister Kigaba is going to follow those laws. These were not Mr. Gordhan's laws. These are ANC laws.
All right, Lawson, I'm going to bring Lawson in if I may, because Lawson, I can see you're shaking your head again in disagreement. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the levels of ethnic chauvinism that Mr. Mbindwane espouses has no place in the African National Congress. That has a proud history, as he ought to know, of being a non-racial party. This is the trait that one of the great traits of the African National Congress that is being trampled upon by the current leadership within the ANC. And he should also know. He should also know that a vote of no confidence in the cabinet not bring.
All right, okay, let's give Lawson a chance, and we'll come back to you, Mr. Bongani, in a minute. Go ahead, Lawson.
Yeah, a vote of no confidence in the president and the cabinet will not bring about fresh elections. That is not provided for in the constitution. It will remove the president and the cabinet if the motion is able to get a majority of support within the National Assembly. It will, as you correctly say, will require a number of members of the African National Congress, numbering up to 50, to vote with the opposition in order for that to happen. It may be possible that that is likely to happen. The ANC, as I said earlier, is now more divided than it has ever been before. The chief whip of the ANC in Parliament is speaking openly about his support for the outgoing Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan. And so it is possible that might happen. And it would be a sad day for South Africa and a sad day for the ANC that an ANC president has brought this organization into such disrepute in the eyes of its supporters and members across the length and breadth of our country.
All right, I promised to Bongani I'll give you a chance. So briefly in 20 seconds, so you can come back in on that before we go to Ali.
Yeah, so look, the ANC prides itself as a non-racial organization, but it talks the truth. Statistics are staring at us in our daily lives. The economy is skewed in favor of white people in particular, and Indians to the extent. That ought to change. You can't have 84% population being dedicated to only being laborers and maids for these people.
You've made that point, and I think we've got about a minute left, so I want to give it to Ali now. And putting this into perspective, any trouble for South Africa is not only a problem for South Africa, right? Given the importance of that country's economy to the entire continent, if not the world.
No, that's right. South Africa is very integrated with the global economy. That's why the rand is the 9th favorite most traded currency. People like to trade it because they see it as responding very well to risk. It's extremely integrated in a way that the rest of Africa isn't. And also, South Africa itself has been expanding into sub-Saharan Africa. Standard Bank comes to mind, and there are plenty of other South African businesses. So there's deep linkages. But the biggest linkages are with SADC. I think the fortunate thing down in that SADC economy is that they've had good rains this year, so they're going to get good harvests. And as long as you get agriculture going, it's supportive. So I think there were a lot of positives happening for South Africa. Currency had responded well. The economy was beginning to pick up off a very low base. But I think, unfortunately, that has all come crashing down after this 12 o'clock midnight strike.
Well, there's plenty more to watch in this drama as things develop quickly. For now, we're going to have to leave the discussion there and thank our guests, Bongani Mbindwane, Ali Khan Satchu and Lawson Naidoo. And thank you too for watching. You can see the show again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, head over to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle there @AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami, Zeidan and the whole team here. For now, it's goodbye.